Everyone says to go network, but no one tells you why most coffee chats end in ghosting. Here's the main ingredient that turns conversations into opportunities. My sophomore year, I thought I was on track. I attended every Deloitte event on campus, shook hands, collected names, connected on LinkedIn, and I thought that was networking. But here's the truth. Nothing came of it. No interviews, no referrals, just nice conversations that went nowhere. Actually, I did get one interview, a first round, but then got ghosted shortly after. So I don't know if that counts. But it wasn't until my senior year when I started taking cold outreach seriously that I realized why my networking skills were broken as a sophomore. If you're struggling to start these conversations, grab my free cold outreach template in the description below. It's the exact framework I use to network successfully, and it'll save you a ton of trial and error. Networking isn't about the number of chats that you line up. It's about what you do with them. And back then, I was showing up empty-handed. That's what I want to show you how to fix. Mistake number 1 is treating networking like a transaction. Early on, I thought the goal of an event or a chat was to signal interest in a job, but that comes off as desperate and one-sided. These people are employed, don't owe you anything to begin with. Instead, you have to add flavor. Ask smarter questions, share your perspective, and make the conversation about them. Instead of, are there any openings that I can apply to at your company? Try, how did you decide between role A and role B early on in your career? See the difference? You're showing curiosity, not asking them to hand you a job. And that makes people want to help you more. Being in the workforce for a little over a year now and having several coffee chats with students who were in the same shoes that I was just a couple years ago, searching for internships or entry-level jobs, it's very apparent when students will come super unprepared to these coffee chats and just ask you very generic questions or questions solely about the recruiting timelines or opportunities available at the firm. Students give off a different type of energy when they're just genuinely curious about you as a person, you and your role, and actually wanting to create a genuine relationship between you two in order to kind of learn about your experiences rather than just trying to make it a very transactional conversation and trying to get a referral or an introduction to another person from your conversation. It's night and day difference, you can tell. And so as a student, setting up coffee chats with industry professionals that you actually want to learn from and build a relationship with and maybe even secure a referral from, you should strive to give off an energy that actually conveys genuine curiosity about the other individual rather than just seeking out a transactional relationship for a referral or for a job. The next tip is to build relationship ladders. One good ingredient can elevate the whole recipe. The same goes for contacts. Another lesson that I learned way too late is don't stop at one conversation. When I finally started networking for my full-time search in senior year, the real progress came when one person introduced me to another, and then another. And that's when momentum builds. Here's a simple way to do it. At the end of every chat, ask, hey, is there anyone else you think I should connect with? That single question could turn one connection into 3. And suddenly, you're not just a random student, you're in the ecosystem. You have a much higher success rate getting these warm intros to a professional's coworkers than you would if you just cold DM'd or cold emailed every single one of them individually. And while this is a relatively low stakes question to ask because it's not really like you're pressuring them to introduce you to other people. If you're still a little weary of asking the person that you just met for a quick favor, like I was, the top level strategy is to make such a good first impression and have a really great conversation, so much so that the person wants to offer to introduce you to other people or pass your resume along to the recruiter without you even having to ask. Of course, this relies on a little bit of luck in terms of having to connect with a person who is actually willing to do something like that and offer favors without being asked. However, I know it's possible because I've experienced it myself. In most of my networking conversations at the start, I was too afraid to ask for an introduction to other coworkers. But I still had times where professionals would offer to send their resume to the hiring manager or the recruiter and also introduce me to another one of their coworkers without me having to ask. And I think for one, that definitely shows the generosity on their part as a human being looking to help one another. But for two, it also speaks to the strength of my personal brand and how clearly I was able to articulate that and communicate how I might be a good fit for their team. Otherwise, if I was fumbling over my words, made a shitty first impression, and couldn't even hold a good conversation, the person on the other end, no matter how nice they were and how much they wanted to help, probably wouldn't introduce me to their coworkers or to the recruiting manager, because at the end of the day, if I spoke to their coworkers, it would look bad on them because they sent me their way. And so a way that you can almost guarantee higher introduction rates is to be an impressive candidate and treat it like a real interview, and just be a good enough candidate that if you were to be passed along by this person, you would make them look good. And finally, the follow-up is the main course. Appetizer just isn't enough. The meal is the follow-up. This last part is where most students drop the ball. Think about it. You have one great chat, they give you good advice, maybe even a lead, but then silence. The follow-up is what turns that appetizer into a full meal. Here's a 3-step system you can use. Step number 1 is a thank you note. Send it within 24 hours. Keep it short, specific, and appreciative. Number 2 is the value add. Maybe a week or two later, send them something useful, maybe a relevant article on their sector or an update on how you applied their advice. Step 3 is a light touch re-engage. Maybe every couple months, send a quick note, an update, a question, congrats on something they posted. That way you stay top of mind without being annoying. And honestly, this is the hardest part, especially for me. I was really bad with the long-term follow-up. I'd be really great about sending a thank you note after our conversation, but with the volume of outreach that I was doing and the coffee chats that I was having, it was hard to remember to continue to maintain these relationships over time. That doesn't necessarily mean that even after half a year or a full year, or maybe even 2 has passed, it doesn't mean that you can't reach out to these people who have helped you in the past. Thank them yet again and rekindle the conversation. Now that you know how to actually make networking work, watch this video next, because once you figure out how to fix networking, you'll never want to go back to spray and pray applications. Let's cook. We'll see you over there.